Hey guys, I'm Gurdeep, and my presentation is going to be on mental health. Mental health is a significant concern, but is often overlooked because it lacks visible symptoms. Regardless, those suffering have no control over it, and the suffering is often held inside, making it worse over time. Its perception is dependent on demographics, and regions of the world, like India and China, still have archaic ways of thinking about it, considering it a curse or karma rather than an illness. Vancouver and Surrey are very multicultural cities, just like the rest of Canada, with Surrey containing 43% of Chinese descent and 29.8% of East Indian descent. And often they'll carry their way of thinking with them if they immigrate to a new country, resisting newfound knowledge in favor of what they were taught. I actually found a survey on Statista, which I will link in the citations, claiming that 60% of people in India believe mental health is due to a lack of discipline and willpower. At this time, I'll play clips from these videos, the first from India and the second from China, to show you the differences in opinion regarding the issue as compared to Canada. If you want to watch the full video, the links are included, as well as in the citations.
Stigma against the mentally ill is widespread across the country. At its core is the belief that mental illness is untreatable and a sign of weakness. As a result, very little mental health care is offered, and patients are considered degenerates. So with a lack of proper medical treatment or education, faith healers fill the gap, and these misconceptions persist.
ये सब मरीज हैं बाहर गांव से आए हुए हैं अभी उनके आंख पागल है ना इसलिए तो आए वो ये जो सब बाहर काटे जाते हैं सब बलाएं दूर होती है ये सब बला दूर हो जाती है तकलीफ जो होती है वो दूर हो जाती है ये बाबा कहते हैं नाड़ा ले ले तो लेडीज अंदर नहीं जाती है वोट रखो बाबा बस
While the dargah provides a measure of relief, the rituals to drive out evil spirits can have dangerous consequences.
आणि त्या लोकांनी काय करतात मग ही लोक काय करतात साखळी बांधा हे बांधा येड्यात काढून त्या माणसाला मारतात म्हणजे जिथे दावा करायची तिकडे मारामारी चालू असते.
Sushma came to the dargah hoping it would cure her schizophrenia. Cast out by her family after she started showing symptoms, she was stuck, with no real treatment and nowhere else to go. Sushma, how did you end up at the dargah?
मेंटली डिस्टर्ब झाली होती मी. घरात सगळं एकदम गंभीर परिस्थिती. त्यांचं असं म्हणणं होतं हिच्यामुळे घरात लग्न होत नाही, चांगल्या गोष्टी होत नाही, हिच्यापायी बाप मेला, हिच्यापायी बहीण बिन लग्नाची घरात पडली, हिच्यापायी भावाचा ॲक्सिडेंट झाला. मग उसके दिन से फिर मुजावर आहे ना दर्ग्यातले जे लोक होते त्यांनी टॉर्चर करायला सुरू केलं. कोणी इथून मारतं जबरदस्तीने दर्ग्यातून हाकलायला लागले.
Cases like Sushma's are common in the dargah and throughout India's mental health care system. Women with mental illness are treated as less than human. This attitude leads to a system rampant with abuse, where a woman with the slightest hint of mental illness, real or imagined, can be committed by her family with no hope of getting out.
We are very much a patriarchal society. For women, it's usually desertion, abandonment, or institutions.
Dr. Devar is a leading mental health activist and runs an NGO that fights for the protection and rights of mentally ill women.
If you go into any mental hospital in India, you will find that men still go home. After a point in time, families are willing to take them back. But women are there for life.
Next, I'll play a clip from this video on China's mental health crisis.
People ignore mental health in China as a real issue, as a real problem. So things like schizophrenia, depression, all of these are rather new terms in the Chinese vocabulary, and it's not something that people really care about too much, unfortunately.
Yeah, you get the situation that if somebody does have a mental issue, they just get locked away by the family. They never see the light of day, basically. Anyway, so my doctor wife One of her responsibilities is to look after the mental health patients. But she doesn't obviously look after them. What she does is she has to phone the families. And she coordinates with the police officer as well. So she phones the families to make sure that the mental patients are getting their medication, right? And that everything's kind of okay. And then she reports back to the police to kind of check off a list to say that they're all okay. So it's actually down to the families to look after mental patients.
Right, so you're talking about the very privileged ones that have sought help, right? And this, of course, the help is not good. We've talked about this in the past. You've had forced electrocutions. You have in the rural areas where they just chain kids up.
Yeah.
If they're intellectually disabled,
Yeah.
or sorry, mentally disabled or whatever.
Yeah, I think you can say intellectually disabled.
Actually, intellectually disabled. Not like, dude, you're intellectually disabled. Anyway, it's very much a non-issue in China in that people ignore mental health in China as a real issue, as a real problem. So things like schizophrenia, depression, all of these are rather new terms in the Chinese vocabulary, and it's not something that people really care about too much, unfortunately.
Yeah, you get the situation that if somebody does have a mental issue, they just get locked away by the family. They
Right.
never see the light of day, basically. Right. And it's the family's responsibility to take care of it. So you don't really have mental institutes and specialized hospitals and stuff.
Right.
It's taken care of by the family, and the only role that the hospital plays in is kind of making sure that they're...
Admin.
Yeah, making sure that they're not running around stabbing people or
Right,
whatever.
and that's the thing is your wife is a GP, yet she is in control of this area, which is not, that's usually is a different branch, right? You have a mental health facility, like you said.
It's basically like she's got an Excel spreadsheet that she has to fill out and
Right.
make phone calls. That's the extent.
So now you can see how mental health is dealt with in certain communities, and you'll understand how it can be difficult in such a multicultural country to have similar perceptions of the issue. Whereas developed countries have done a great deal of research, but in countries like India and China, parts of them still believe that the cure is limes, holy strings, and electrocution. There is also a great deal of stigma around the issue, preventing people from seeking help, as 50% of those suffering don't even seek treatment, according to Statista, which is obviously a result of the stigma, along with the fact that the majority believe that the illness is caused by the lack of discipline and willpower in India. But how do we reduce this stigma? Well, it requires education, sympathy, support, caring, and healthcare to reduce the stigma. Saying things like, "Don't worry, just get over it," is not helpful and serves to make light of the situation. Joking about it has a similar effect, as you may be joking with somebody who's actually experiencing these issues, which is rather insensitive. To reduce overall stigma, we must promote education and understanding, so people can realize that it isn't a lack of discipline and willpower, and is an actual sickness and issue caused by events and possibly even brain chemistry, rather than simply a curse. There are many forms of mental illness, so on these two slides I'll go over some of the types and their effects. A person may suffer from anxiety disorder, which is a constant feeling of nervousness or worry. Another type is social anxiety disorder, which is intense fear of being embarrassed or creating negative impressions on others. A third type of anxiety disorder is generalized anxiety disorder, which is excessive worrying over minor concerns. Then we have several types of bipolar, one being bipolar affective disorder, which is a constant change from extreme mania to extreme depression. A person may also experience depression, which is basically feeling sad, hopeless, worthless, guilty, or anxious most of the time. Another is OCD, where repetitive thoughts or urges just won't go away. An individual may also suffer from paranoia, which is suspicion or mistrust of people without justification. Moving on to the next slide, we also have PTSD, which can result from exposure to traumatic events, leading to flashbacks and nightmares. Psychosis is a situation where thoughts and emotions have lost contact with reality. Lastly, there's schizophrenia, where one may experience a break in reality similar to psychosis, and can lead to hallucinations and delusions. This in no way is a complete list of afflictions, but covers many of the most likely illnesses. Symptoms of these disorders can include losing interest in activities previously enjoyed, feelings of anger and sadness for no reason, strange thoughts, unrealistic worries, eating and sleeping habits being changed, avoiding people, including family and friends whose company you previously enjoyed, and feelings of suicide. Now I'll get into my story and experience with mental health afflictions. I grew up in an abusive family, both mentally, emotionally, and physically, growing up in poverty in a poor neighborhood in Toronto. So my dad stressed education to the point that if I brought home anything less than an A+, it was garbage and we would suffer the wrath. Whereas if I succeeded in receiving an A+, this was merely just acceptable. And over time, this basically destroyed my self-esteem and created a lot of anxiety. For this reason, I pretty much moved out at around 14 or 15 because I just couldn't take it anymore, and quickly got adopted by gangs, because at first they'll show you love, and coming out of a family situation where you haven't really experienced that, you will get sold easily, until eventually they ask you to start doing things to repay them for their kindness. And before I knew it, I was engaged in criminal acts. I already had low self-esteem from my upbringing, came from a bad neighborhood where there were shootings every day, so I thought these people were my family now, and offered a source of protection, which led me to selling drugs, as I was good with numbers and always excelled at school, but didn't want to engage in the more violent acts. This made me worthwhile to them, because while I refused to engage in other activities, I was good at business and number crunching, since I was always a good student, so I was an excellent source of revenue for them. But unfortunately, this eventually caught up with me and I served a 10-year sentence, witnessing countless stabbings and beatings, not to mention was unfortunately the victim of many. And now I still have PTSD from that period, with constant flashbacks of being jumped and stabbed, combined with a now heightened anxiety and depression. After it all, I decided that I was tired of having fake friends around me, no longer wanted to continue doing the same thing that only has one possible outcome, and decided to move away to start fresh. While I was able to leave the friends and life behind, I am at the point where I have almost completed my bachelor's, but the mental issues still follow me, and the puzzle piece is still missing. My anxiety is at an all-time high because I'm fearful nobody will hire me because of the record. And though I score top marks, I can't get my CPA due to the record acting as a barrier. And I still experience flashbacks of stabbings and beatings from prison. So while you can try to run away from your problems, they will still exist in the background. And that's why I am currently working on trying to see someone to fix these issues, as they don't simply go away. For this reason, medical help is necessary, which is why I found some resources which may be helpful. VCH stands for Vancouver Coastal Health and offers many resources, including inpatient, outpatient, and even at-home help, if you are scared to leave the house. There is also a program called the ACT BC, provided by the Assertive Community Treatment Program. I'm not sure if the KPU link would be useful for an employee, as they may have already graduated and not have access, but it was still a resource I found, so I thought I would provide it. They are currently closed due to COVID, but are located in the Surrey campus in Birch Room 230, and should be opening hopefully soon, and can provide great services since they are well trained and students as well. You can see their email provided on the right side of the screen. Lastly, if the issues are more severe and one may be feeling suicidal, there are several crises centers one may call, such as the Crises Center of BC, which offers 24/7 distress lines with highly trained human responders, along with many programs and courses ranging from managing stress and mental health services to serious mental illnesses. There is a mountain of resources available, and if one is suffering, they should seek help ASAP, because constant support, talking through the issues, and possibly medication is the only viable method of improvement. That concludes my presentation, and thank you for listening. I have also included the citations as well as where I used that information in red, just in case you wanted to explore further. Thanks.